human beings are incredibly capable of change and adaptation. And when you think about this, you have humans living in very cold places, like Jackson Hole. You have people living in very warm places, like in southern India, where I was born. You have people living at altitude. You have people living at sea level. You have people living in outer space. You have human beings who figured out how to live underwater for long periods of time. So there's a paradox here, which is that at one level, we're a highly adaptable species. And in fact, when we're put in situations where we have to adapt, in fact, we are very adaptable. But on a regular basis in our personal lives, in our professional lives, in our political lives, many of us find it difficult to change. Many of us find ourselves stuck in our ways. So there's an interesting paradox here, which is that we have a capacity to change, but many of us feel intimidated by actually changing things that we want to change. The simplest way to think about this might be to change things slowly or in small ways over periods of time. So in other words, if you're trying to build a habit, if you're trying to build something new, you try and figure out a way to do it so that the initial ask is not very difficult. So for example, if you're trying to change, let's say something, you want to build more muscle. You don't start off by saying, how do I lift up 100 pounds on the first go? You start by trying to lift 1 pound and then try and lift 2 pounds. In other words, the more gradual you can make the ramp of change, the less it feels like change. And in fact, the easier the change becomes. The other situation is you put yourself in a situation where, in fact, you have to change. And in fact, people often find that this is actually helpful. When you actually make a dramatic change and there's no going back, you will find that you have access to some of your evolutionary history that made our species so adaptable.